Congresswoman, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us. We really appreciate it. What is your strategy for retaining this seat? That's my first question. This is a highly contested race, closely watched around the country, could determine which party controls the House of Representatives. What's your strategy this time around?
The same as it was last time, really focused on the local issues. I say this all the time. As a former mayor, it's important to talk about what people care about most. And what I know from my 20 years on the ground and my experience being that mayor, people care about public safety, people care about good education, people care about affordability, can they buy their first homes, and what's just their everyday life look like. I mean, oftentimes people would tell me that as a mayor. They said that to me this last election, and they're saying it again. Keep the work up that you're doing. Work across the aisle. People are tired of the partisanship. We hear it all the time. When I went to Congress, I said, I'm going to work with anybody who wants to work with me on the issues that matter most.
One of those issues impacting people's everyday lives that you just mentioned, the economy. That's a huge issue this election. So what policies do you support if reelected to Congress that you would push for in 2025 to help lower costs of everyday expenses like groceries, energy, and housing?
Yeah, it's the primary focus. It's really what makes the day go around, energy, when we're talking about from the bottom up. But affordability is what people talk about. People use the word inflation, people use the word the economy. We want to grow the economy, we know that. But what people want every day is more money in their pocket. People are working hard to keep their jobs and they don't feel like they have enough of it. At the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, do the ends meet? And oftentimes that's not the case. Young people looking for housing affordability. We have a shortage of housing here in Oregon. People are concerned with can they even pay their rent? So some of the things that I have been working on and I'll continue to work on is expanding the child tax credit. That's important for young families. Also the tax credit for if they have dependent children, just to pay for the basics of rent, food, housing. Working with HUD. I was visiting on some housing stuff on the Choice and Affordability Act for housing, choice in housing. And again, for landlords, when we're talking about rent, what does that look like for an expanded voucher program so that landlords can feel comfortable about these voucher systems and expanding that. And that's, lowering their inspection time, making sure that they can turn around their rentals, and then there's affordability there. So there's lots of little things we can do that we stay focused on, but we can't do it without the bipartisanship. And I think that that's important. When we're talking about energy costs, people are concerned with their house and heating and electricity. I sit on the Conservative Climate Caucus and the Climate Solutions Fund for various reasons. And those are bipartisan, and that's to talk about the energy costs. People want to talk about the environment, energy. We're talking about hydrogen, we're talking about nuclear, we're talking about natural gas, electricity. We want to make sure that we're protecting our environment, protecting our planet, but we still have to make costs affordable. And it's bringing those people to the table to do just that and not be energy independent on other countries. We have to make sure that we're dependent right here at home in America.
The other big issue in this election cycle is reproductive health care, abortion rights. What's your response to your opponent's campaign and some of her supporters tying your record to that of Donald Trump's? Specifically on abortion, many attack ads are saying you support a nationwide abortion ban. What's your response to that?
Well, I've been very clear over and over again that I will not support a national ban. And even the former president has said the exact same thing. This is not the route that we're going. This is a states' rights issues now, post-Dobbs. The Supreme Court ruled that it's to be handled by the states. And in Oregon, they have spoken up. And they've spoken up for years on this issue, that they want access to abortion. They want some sort of access. We codified that here in Oregon state law in 2017. I'm not going to do anything to change that. And since I've been in Congress, there's not been one thing that I've done to change the access that Oregonians have, and that'll be the case moving forward.
Shifting to Israel and Ukraine, where do you stand on continued military aid to Israel and Ukraine in the next Congress? It's hard to say what those conflicts could look like in January of 2025, and it could be something that Congress has to act quickly on depending on the situation. So where do you stand on those two conflicts?
Well, the situation changes daily and weekly, and we've seen that over the last few years. I have been a staunch advocate for Israel since day one and will continue to be. They have a right to defend themselves. What we don't want is an all-out war. And we know that if Iran has their way, that would be the case through their proxies or just themselves. So we've done everything we can to support Israel. And I always will stand by that. And I have voted for those supplementals. Now, the supplemental that was passed, I voted for, and that's to fund Israel, Ukraine, and the Indo-Pacific, and making sure that we're addressing our national security issues. We know that Putin, if he had his way, not only is he marching into Ukraine, it can go further if we don't stand up for our allies. Same with Israel when we're talking about Iran, and then protecting the Indo-Pacific when we're talking about China. So, paying attention to all those, America has to do what we can for our allies, and making sure that we're protecting ourselves against our adversaries.
How are you an independent voice, though, in Congress amongst some of your Republican colleagues who don't want any more aid going to Ukraine, or they're concerned about how much is going to Ukraine? What kind of conversations do you have with members of your own party who might feel differently than you on foreign policy?
Well, that's, I think, the independent thinking. But the concern there is accountability. We want to know, are we getting to the end goal? What does it look like? And we have to have those conversations on foreign policy. But to step back and not be a part of NATO and making sure that we're paying attention to that, to step back and say that we're not going to support Israel doesn't make sense. What we don't want is an all-out World War III. We want to make sure that our American troops are protected.
I'll end on this question. Polling has shown that the race for Oregon's 5th District is very close right now. It's good. It'll be a close race for sure. So what's your message to people who are still undecided at this point? Independents, people who are maybe moderate members of both parties who've voted across the aisle before. What's your message to some of those undecided voters?
Well, people make this decision at their kitchen table usually. People talk to their families, people talk to their parents, their kids, and they think to themselves, am I better today than I was yesterday? And we hear that across. But I can tell you this, between myself and my opponent, 22 months I've been in office. I've been an effective legislator. People can trust me. That's what they're going to ask. Can I trust her? Did she do what she said she was going to do? Can we talk to her? Can we share whatever the needs that we have? And will she listen? I work hard. Nobody's going to outwork me. My opponent has a 10 years in the legislature almost with failed leadership, then and now. We're no better off than we were 10 years ago when she took the helm at the state. We're less safe on the streets. The economy is worse than it has ever been. The housing affordability, she says that she's answered and she hasn't, because people are suffering. So they're going to have a choice between nearly a decade of failed leadership at the state level. Why would they give her a promotion to go and do the same?
All right. Thank you for your time,
Yeah.
Congresswoman.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.